Okay. Good afternoon. It's Aloha Friday, and it's a good day today. We have a real nice agenda for the Committee on Water and Land. Just some housekeeping measures. We will, of course, there are testifiers today, and we have a nice group here. And we ask you that you stand on your written testimony or limit your oral testimony to a minute. This does not include, and I must preface that too, because sometimes we on the committee would like to ask questions as well. And so let's have a very nice briefing today, and I'm happy that we limited the agenda item for our session today as well. So we'll be very, I would say, a little more relaxing time that we can, if you do have for those testifiers some things of importance, feel free to go, and we'll allow you to go beyond your minute as well. The content of this hearing can be found on the legislature's website. The live video stream and archive of the hearing is on the Senate's YouTube channel. And we will be making decisions after this hearing. And thank you, members. Good to see you today on Aloha Friday, and didn't escape to go to my island. So we're happy you are here. Some have already gone there, but we must do the people's work. Let's proceed. The Committee on Water and Land on is GM, which is the governor's message on 594. And this is submitting for consideration and confirmation as the Deputy Director, Department of Land and Natural Resources, GM Ryan Kanakaole, for a term to expire December 31st, 2026. Let's see. We have Mr. Kanakaole up front here. If you'd like to, members, do you want to, we're very flexible. We got time. We can have Mr. Kanakaole, or shall we go into the testifiers first? Let's go to the testifiers first. Okay. DLNR. Chair Chang.
Oh, it is with great pleasure.
Yes, welcome.
Thank you.
Good to see you.
Aloha mai kako.
Aloha.
Don Chang, Chair of the Board of Land and Natural Resources. I am not going to read all of my testimony as you do have it. However, I would like to read the last 3 paragraphs. While Mr. Kanakaole is well qualified to serve as DLNR's Deputy Director, it is his cultural foundation of growing up in Ka'u, along with his work with community stakeholders who share a similar mission to DLNR that benefits both the department and the people of Hawaii. During the last 3 months that he has served as the governor's nominee of Deputy Director to the department, he has assumed the role of the legislative coordinator, reviewing and weighing in on hundreds of bills that have direct impact to the department. In addition, he continues to be an active participant in the Maui wildfire recovery support function, where he coordinates with other state, county, and federal agencies on a number of projects that involve DLNR. Ryan Kanakaole has fully assumed all the responsibilities of the Deputy Director for the department, and it would be with great honor and privilege to have him continue to serve in this important role. Mahalo for the opportunity to provide testimony in support of the governor's nominee to the position of Deputy Director to the Department of Land and Natural Resources.
Thank you, Chair.
very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Dean Minakami for HHFDC sends a testimony in support. Department of Agriculture sends communication in support. Tommy Johnson, Corrections and Rehabilitation.
Good afternoon, Chair. Tommy Johnson for the Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation, not really. Melanie Martin, standing in on behalf of Director Johnson. He really wanted to be here and got called away to a meeting, but he stands in strong support of the nominee. Thank you.
Thank you for your presence as well, and you're a pretty Tommy Johnson. But anyway, we're happy that you're here. The State Energy Office sends communication in support, and all of these are in support. Jade Butai, DLIR. Okay. Wendy Gady is here, ADC.
Greetings, Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the committee. I'm Wendy Gady with the Agribusiness Development Corp, and we stand in very strong support of our board.
Thank you very much. Okay, Leimana Demati, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Chair. Leimana Damate, Hawai'i State Ahamoku. We stand in very strong support. Thank you.
Mahalo, good to see you. DHHL, Hawaiian Homelands, sends communication as well. DOT, it's NIFID. Okay, Kurt Cottrell, okay. Division of State Parks. Gary Suganuma, Department of Taxation. Okay. Before I continue on, who is here that I haven't gotten to that sent testimony? Okay. Oh yeah, please. Aloha.
Aloha. Dave Day, I'm the Special Assistant to the Attorney General. I'm here testifying in my personal capacity today in strong support of my friend Ryan. Before I tell you why I truly believe in Ryan, Attorney General Ann Lopez asked for me to convey the following message in addition to her written testimony. She is sorry she could not be here today. In person today, she has the highest confidence in Ryan and believes that that given his background, DLNR is the perfect department for the next step of his career. As for me, I would just like to briefly speak about Ryan's character as you have my written testimony. Ryan is deeply respected at the Department of the Attorney General for his temperament, his calmness, his composure, and his compassion, and his enduring love for Hawaii. These traits serve him extremely well as the Deputy Director in this important department of Department of Land and Natural Resources. Ryan is an excellent lawyer and a wonderful person. I ask this committee to please give Ryan your blessing and to recommend his confirmation. Thank you.
Thank you for your presence as well. Thank you, Dave. Okay, and we had, yeah, please come on. If you want to.
Hey, aloha.
1 second
Chair.
on Zoom. 1 second on Zoom.
Hello, my
Aloha.
kako. Joby Masagatani.
Good to see you.
Good to see you too, Senator, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. I got to know Ryan when I had the opportunity to serve as the chair of the Department of Hawaiian Homelands and then served as the executive assistant with William Aila. And the one thing I do want to say, since, just in my personal capacity, because I am now a regular citizen again, which I'm very grateful for, is his dedication and his grit and his intelligence. There was a period of time at DHL where Ryan was the only deputy performing all of the work that usually is carried by 3 to 4 attorneys full-time. And, he never wavered, just did as much as he could, didn't step back. And I think others would have taken that opportunity to either just fold or walk away. And so I do think that in the time that I've served with him, he's an excellent choice for Deputy Director at DLNR. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for your service as well. I'm sure we'll continue to see you. Okay, we had one, yes, please. Good to see you, Patrick.
Good to see you, Senator, committee members. I just was here because I wanted to testify.
Introduce yourself
Excuse
again.
me. Pat Bronco, a former state representative, and I'm proud to be here to testify on behalf of my dear friend, Mr. Ryan Kanakaole. I had the great privilege of studying with Mr. Kanakaole since 7th grade. And through that time, I've seen his professional development. And the thing that I love about Ryan is he has judgment and discretion, and he will serve our state very well. Additionally, as we know, public service is a family business. He is also married to a very smart Native Hawaiian attorney, and that she will also serve him well in his role. And it's great that we have 2 professionals willing to serve our state. So I stand in strong support of Mr. Kanakaole's confirmation. Mahalo.
Thank you, Patrick. Good to see you. And there's another hand that was raised. Anyone wants to come up and speak? Okay. Zoom will take, IT, we will take all those standing by in Zoom. Please state your name.
Aloha, Chair. My name is Matthew Kaulana Ing. I stand in strong support of my friend Ryan Kanakaole. I've known Ryan for about 2 decades now, and I've seen the work that he's done in community. I mean, I think his the excellence of his career, his intellect, all of the professional accolades that have been spoken about by previous testifiers speak for themselves. But I have seen, Ryan help families in great times of need. Sometimes in when they were in a bind, Ryan just freely, graciously offered his time and compassion and aloha to people. In some cases, helping them to stay here in Hawaii. I've also heard how he talks about his favorite hiking trails and his favorite surf spots as the way that someone speaks of a beloved family member. And even his own children are named after beloved vahipana and native plants that he loves. And I've seen how much aloha that he pours into them, even speaking ʻōlelo Hawaii to his children at home. And as a father myself, I think it's very important as I raise my child here and all the hard work that it takes for us to stay here in Hawaii, that someone in this position be someone who loves these lands, who is going to protect the things about Hawaii that makes it special and makes me want to raise my child here. And I fully trust Mr. Kanakaole for that position to serve not just me and my family, but all of Hawaii. So again, I strongly support Mr. Kanakaole for the position of Deputy Director.
Thank you, Matthew. Appreciate your hold on Zoom and appreciate your comments as well. Thank you. IT, anyone else on Zoom?
No, no, Chair, no one else is present on Zoom.
All right, okay. We do have a continual support base here for our deputy. Blake Oshiro sends communication from the Office of the Governor, Jordan Lowe, DLE, Nadine Ando from DCCA, Dean Hazama, Department of DCCA as well, Luis Salaveria, Stephen Logan of the Department of Defense, Doug Murdoch of the Office of Enterprise Technology Services. We have Sabrina Nasser testifying for budget, BNF, James Tokioka from DBED, and Kwan Safi from Public Housing Authority, Department of Health as well, Keith Reagan from DAGS, Kristen Sakamoto from Taxation, Muling Silliman from DAGS as well, Michael Naho'opi'i of Kirk, Susan Liloy, council person, Hawaii County, and we have many names, but they took the time to send it in, and we do have time. I will read all the support going forward. Trevor Tamashiro, okay, there's only one person that sent in comments, was Douglas Meller, and the rest are all in support. Michelle Galimba, and we know that she is the council person for Ka'u. In your background, Jacqueline Ambrose, Lyle Rowe, Carrie Okinaga, Andrew Choi, Geisen Ontai, Amanda Donlin, Kanani Keolalio, Catherine Detchner, Matthew, and I believe it's Vonch, Bill Isla Jr., Jan Yamani, Tyler Gomes, Diane Tyra, Byron Yi, Todd Tashima, Melissa Fuse, Alana Bryan, Dexter Kishida, Alan Bartolome, Lincoln Ashida, and that's my constituent from Hilo, David Kaapu, who I know that lives in Kona, I believe still, Jonathan Schur, Keldon Walgen, and he is our county prosecutor on Big Island. I see Catherine Garson from Big Island as well, Trista Spear, Lauren Tamanaha, Greg Iha, John Komeji, Noah Gomes, Alisa Marie Kau, Sherry Broder, Michelle Sagai Sai, James Akau, Sandra Ching, Ka'aheo, Ka'o Halahala, Joseph Campos, Valerie Kato, Charlene Aina, Kathleen Ho, Hokule Lindsay, Debbie Morikawa, Gary Yamashiroya, Leatrice Burrows Nuuanu, and Lee Ann Bryan. Okay, I think they've already made the decision. However, please, members will have the GM 594, Ryan Kanakaole. Okay. Now that you have relaxed and, okay, welcome.
Hello, Chair. Hello, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Ryan Kanakaole, Governor's nominee for First Deputy, Department of Land and Natural Resources. I'm grateful for this hearing, for your time. Thankful to Chair, Vice Chair, all the members for being able to meet with me one-on-one to get to know me. And I'm grateful for everybody who sent in support and are here in person and online. It's just really humbling. You know, you have my my resume, you have my questionnaire, you have the public has access to my resume, and it speaks to my education and my path in public service. But you know, I don't think it speaks to really like my why. At least the public doesn't have that. I've spoken to you about my why, and I chose to follow this path. You know, really because of where I'm from and who I'm from, and those are always been the points of my reference, the foundation for my decision making, and more important, the core of my identity. So, I'm from Hawaii Island. I was raised in Ka'u district. I'm from a small place called Waiohinu. My mother's family has been there for a very long time, and we're still there. And most of you are familiar with Ka'u, and it's a big place. It's bigger than the island of Oahu. It has 1% of the population. It's remote. The amenities of modern life are few and far between, and just very far away. But it's a beautiful and wild and awe-inspiring place, and the people there are extremely self-reliant. My family, all the families around me, we rely on the land, on the ocean to provide. And that's just the way of life out there. And when that way of life is threatened, the people out there, they speak up and they speak loudly. And I think it's a pattern in most rural self-reliant communities all around this Pai'aina. The people in those communities, they work hard to protect the place and its resources. And when their lifestyle is threatened, the things that they treasure are threatened. Typically, it's from economic forces from the outside that often have entry to rooms that make decisions. Buildings like this one, that, you know, it's just easier for them to come in. And for the lack of a better way to describe it, the people impacted wind up on the outside in protest. I grew up on the outside. And I don't ever want to forget that. Luckily, I have actual physical reminders nearby, even though I live on this island, to remind me of where I came from, because I just have to walk through Iolani Palace grounds and I see a kuahu that my father's hands helped build. And I am immediately reminded of why I'm here. And it's to try to bring some of what's often left on the outside of the rooms in. And I'm here to protect what we got. I'll keep safe the things that remain. And because for many of us from far away places, it's those resources that are the most important things, because for a lot of us, that's the only thing that we get to inherit. And that's why I do what I do.
Thank you. Well said. Members, just to let you know, I'm very familiar with the district. The Big Island brings out many good people as well. I was sharing with Ryan that my first political office, my first campaign manager came from Honuapu. And that's in between where he lived and Alehu. And I ran as a council person at large. And so it was the big island in 84, and just to experience the lifestyle of that district as well. I grew up in a sugar plantation, no different than the area that Ryan comes from. However, when he talked about things that I can attest to what he's saying about is the district where he was born, I was involved as a council person when all those major developments happened. The spaceport, I mean, the whole community came out against it. I mean, we had weeks and weeks and weeks of community meetings and council. And then there was a huge development over at, I think was beyond Punalu'u, where there was a huge development that would have been, I would say, maybe a little bigger than the developments we see on the ocean side over at West Oahu. And so they came out all in force against it. But that's the lifestyle that the people in that district decided that they'll keep the area as where it is, that has been there for a number of generations. So I gather that. Now, can you share with the committee, since you've been there for a little over maybe 3 months now, the areas that have been given to you to cover, the responsibilities that you've taken so far working with wherever you were placed by the chair to assist her in managing the huge division of 12 agencies.
Certainly. So Chair mentioned that one of my biggest priorities immediately was to step into the legislative coordinator role. I'm thankful that I have had experience with the legislature in past sessions in my role at the Attorney General's office. So, that was overseeing all the divisions, testimony, and seeing that it got to you folks and to help shepherd the legislation through that impacted our department. That included, sending in over 500 separate pieces of testimony this session alone.
In both houses?
In both houses, yeah. And beyond the legislative coordination position, within the office of the chairperson, my immediate goal is to build up the team in the office of the chair. We have vacancies at board secretary, we have vacancies at administrative services assistant, we have vacancy in economic development specialist, and I'm trying to help fill those roles to interview potential applicant or potential prospective employees and get the team up, because you're only as good as your team and what you have. Another goal that I'm working towards is helping where I can in the fulfilling of the various mandates that we have from the legislature, whether that be working on Act 90 transfer of agricultural lands, or even coming over into DLNR and helping with pursuing work with the Department of Hawai'i Homelands in terms of transferring land to them. I also serve as the ex officio member for DLNR at the Board of Agriculture, at the Agricultural Development Corporation Board, and the Mauna Kea Stewardship Oversight Authority. So my goal is to forward the interests of DLNR in the state of Hawaii in those capacities.
Okay. So it seems like you're overseeing a lot of probably the agencies with regards to the personnel as well, the direction for each administrator who's managing the different agencies?
So my HR capacity right now is limited to the office of the chairperson, but we are involved in helping where can with the various agencies within DLNR.
Oh, okay. So with that said, have you been able to, you did mention that you are the ex officio member for several of the boards as well. However, have you had an opportunity to really sit down with boards as the BLNR board as well?
So with BLNR, no. I'm oftentimes called here during the board meetings that are on every other Friday. But as far as the boards that I do sit on, I have been involved in them, including doing community sessions with the Mauna Kea Stewardship Oversight Authority. And I've been active on all the boards. One that comes to mind is Board of Agriculture, where I didn't want to say that I deferred something, but I questioned a certain transaction, a conveyance, and so we've brought it back to the Department of Agriculture to relook at. It was a $1 a year lease of 26 acres of land on Hawai'i, and I questioned the appropriateness of the rental rate as well as the appraisal or lack of appraisal, and so it's been tabled for now, and so that they can go back and do their due diligence and get the best outcome for the state, for the public land trust, because it is ceded lands.
And that's what should happen as well.
Yes.
And that's a large department, not as large as DLNR, but we're happy that you're able to at least look at several areas, because you were in the Attorney General's office as well, and you are an active attorney in your own pace. So, and I think that, we need to do our due diligence, and happy that you're able to participate in that. I have one question. As a director, and you're being a former Attorney General for the Mauna Kea Stewardship and the Oversight Authority. And I'm going to throw this out just to share with you what are your thoughts on Senate Bill 2297. And 2297 was introduced by me, though the measure is pretty much dead. But this bill clarified that DLNR would retain its jurisdiction, and I'm sure you're familiar with this, on the conservation district lands on Mauna Kea after the transition period, and it extended daycare coverage of Mauna Kea after the transition is complete. And what that did was taking away, actually for me personally, but I think for the people of Hawaii and its ceded lands, responsibility. And DLNR has been very, very good and efficient in managing the conservation lands on that particular area, and taking out, and no different than daycare's responsibility. But with this new authority, the Mauna Kea Stewardship Oversight takes away that responsibility. And our revised statute, and that's 171 and 183C-3, establishes that DLNR and BLNR are responsible for conservation district lands. It's really bothering and troublesome to me, and I believe that this committee did move the bill out because of the same commitment we have to support and defend our state constitution. Another point is that with the Section 5F, you're familiar with, of the Hawaii Admissions Act. And this created 5 purposes for ceded lands, being for the support of the public schools and other public educational institutions, for the betterment of the conditions of Native Hawaiians, for the development of farm and home ownership, for the making of public improvements and for the provision of lands for public use. And with that determination of HRS 171 that has designated DLNR and BLNR the responsibility. So I just wanted to share that with you and how you feel with regards to that. The Mauna Kea Stewardship and Oversight Authority is not a sanctioned state agency that the US Constitution and the state constitution as well provides the maintenance of all of the responsibilities of the state. So just wanted to share with you, how do you feel about that?
As far as I'm concerned, and actually the department's position regarding the conservation district responsibilities over Mauna Kea, that remains with the Department of Land and Natural Resources, regardless of what the act authorizing the Mauna Kea Stewardship Oversight Authority says, because it does not clarify on that responsibility, and it doesn't give them the authority over the conservation district use. So as far as we're concerned, we are still responsible for that, and we will still continue to be responsible for that.
So with that said, then you would support us changing the authority's responsibility, because once that happens, they got what, three more years to go to, and time is ticking. And if we don't make that changes, then there's going to be much pilikia for what's going to happen even the year before the transition period. That's very concerning to me. And it's, to me, just something that this legislature passed. Though I was the lone voter, I would think from the Senate, but the measure passed. But it's our responsibility here to make the corrections that we're supposed to be supporting and make sure that what the Admissions Act and the ceded lands and the responsibility that was given to DLNR and the board. But I'm happy that at least you share the concerns that that I personally had and the committee as well. With that said, members, please, your show.
Oh, but you're obviously publicly saying that you support the department, what the senator is saying?
I'm saying that Act 226 of session laws, what was it, 2022? Mm-hmm. Without question, there probably is a need for additional clarity on the real role of the MKSOA.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you very much. Do you have any questions?
Yes, Senator.
Yeah, no, I actually, go ahead.
Okay, Senator Elefante, and feel free, feel free
Yeah, well,
after, we
but
got
I want
time.
to go down a rabbit hole or two, so.
Yeah, we got time, so this is Ryan's show, so let's make sure that everybody's comfortable.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. First of all, congratulations, Deputy Director, on your nomination for that, and thank you for making the time to meet with us and meet with me. Some of these questions might have come up when we've met, but for the general public, I have 3 questions, Chair, if I may.
Please.
The first one is, as we all know, military leases are coming up for renewal. A large part of these renewal of leases fall into the purview of DLNR. Can you share with this committee and the public what your position might be on some, and I know it's usually a case-by-case basis, how your thoughts is in terms of your philosophy or thinking on how we should approach it?
For the upcoming leases, and there are many across the state, times have changed. The previous terms and conditions of the old leases are not going, if they do even get renewed, are not going to be the same. The scope of our understanding of what a good steward is of land has changed over time. And that is going to inform if these leases, and I say if because the military, the Department of Defense, they're the applicant for a lease, for a new lease. But that doesn't guarantee them to get a new lease. And if it happens, it's not gonna be the same.
I appreciate your answer on that. The second one has to do with lands that DLNR might have jurisdiction over. I'm just really talking in general terms, but we've had some issues as it dealt with lands of DLNR, maybe the landowner, say for instance, in school areas, where you might have DOE, DLNR, and then some other parcel that's owned by a different entity. But usually the overlying owner would be DLNR. How do you foresee yourself in terms of when an issue comes up with that, where in some cases DOE says it's DLNR, DLNR says it's DOE. So how do you approach that when the community, and I'll give you an example, like this is a real example where there's illegal dumping happening from the community on a school area that impacts people taking their kids to school, and we're not able to pinpoint which agency. And in this case, DOE, did say, okay, we will handle this until we figure out a long-term solution.
Well, I'm glad that someone stepped up.
Yeah.
But actually, I think at the practical level, you need someone to step up, whether it be DLNR or the other agencies. But at the legal level and who is responsible, you have to take a look at what the conveyance was. That's the legal training in me. Look back at what the conveyance was and what the management responsibilities and who had them at the time of the agreement, because we have to honor our agreements.
Okay.
And usually you'll find clarity there. And if not, then you go to the practical solution, which is solve the health, safety, welfare issue. Who's gonna do it? Somebody has to step up. And I'm glad that in this situation, DOE stepped up.
Thank you. And final question. Today we considered a bill on the floor that had to do with small boat harbors. We're considering it again on Tuesday for final vote, but I was just curious to know, I know Dobar does fall under DLNR. Do you have a position if you feel small boat harbors should be privatized or not?
I think that's just one solution to the deferred maintenance issue and the issue of costs. The other solution would be bifurcating, and I've discussed this with Senator McKelvey about taking a good look at whether these small boat harbors should be returned to the Department of Transportation because they're commercial entities, or they largely serve commercial entities, and that's a harbor by harbor, analysis there. But it's just one solution, I think, and it's more I think out of a position of need to try and address the costs.
Okay. Thank you, Deputy Director. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yes, Senator Chang.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Two quick questions. First, is light industrial development the highest and best use of DLNR lands within 1 mile of Honolulu rail stations?
The highest and best use. So in terms of highest and best use, I'm going to defer to the land board and their decision making on that. And I think you're referring to the East Kapolei plans, the Keonanae, the Keonanae transit station plans there, and then what we have there. And insofar as what is planned, we have 1,000 units of affordable housing within the mile. And there's also light industrial and other commercial uses for economic development purposes in the area. And that was driven by input by the community, driven by input by the board. And we're open to alternatives. We're open to changing the plan. However, that is going to be ultimately driven by the community again. I'm not sure whether or not they would agree with a position of, light industrial should be there. I don't know if they're going to be agreeable to a position of, no, we should maximize housing there, because, and So what I'm saying is, at the end of the day, we can revisit it, but because this is public lands, especially the community who is impacted need to drive decision-making.
Under your leadership, if confirmed, will DLNR continue to pursue light industrial development on lands within 1 mile of Honolulu rail stations?
For the current plans that are in place, like I said, we're gonna have to reopen planning, reintegrate community input. But as far as pursuit goes, I think that's a strong word. I think that's not necessarily we're at that point right now, because we are in the very early stages of planning development, and we've already put out as a viable alternative other uses, including multi-family housing.
I'm not sure if I got a yes or no to that. And, you know, for your information, Madam Chair, I'll find it difficult to support a nominee who will continue to pursue light industrial use on valuable and scarce state parcels near rail stations. So I'll yield the floor back to our nominee.
Again, it's a community-driven planning process, and I am not in support of top-down approaches where we are putting it upon communities that perhaps we're not even from and making the decision for them. Now, I understand that there is a need for housing, and we at DLNR have opened up our lands for housing, over 1,600 units on the rail, to open up housing for 1,600 units along the rail line alone. And it's more than just looking at a map and seeing, oh, we can put it within a certain amount of square mileage, because the truth of the matter is you have to go on the ground and see how that ground is shaped. So in the situation that we're talking about now near Keone, there is two gulches that separate the community. And as far as walkability goes, I don't know if you ever walked in a gulch before, but it's kind of hard. And to be able to connect the community, it will require major expense in terms of, if you get to the point of the community being okay with the plans, then implementing them will be another expense, because then you're changing the landscape of the area, and I'm not sure how much that's going to cost. But again, I just want to say that we've supported the development of affordable housing in so many areas in Oahu, statewide, conveyance of thousands of acres statewide to HHFDC and DHHL come to mind. I worked on some of those transactions from DLNR to DHHL. I can say that that's not DLNR's wheelhouse to develop lands for housing, but they are open to identification of the lands that are ready for housing, and we are willing to convey it.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, with that said, on the subject matter, oh, yes,
I just
please.
want to jump in with
Sure,
a few
sure.
questions, if I may, because you are stepping into a pretty big role, right, as the deputy director. And so, and you mentioned some of your charges has been like, with DLNR already, right? So you said that, how involved are you? I heard earlier that you were the point person for DLNR with the Lahaina area insofar as their response as an agency, or
Natural cultural resource recovery.
for the cultural aspect for everything?
Natural and cultural resource recovery and DLNR point generally for Lahaina.
Generally, okay, so we had some discussion, we talked about the Harvard situation, some of the specifics, and and I appreciate, you admitted to me that you didn't really know much about Dobor and everything. We can do some research on it. So I feel it's now good to bring up this question, because it coincides, your legislative liaison, your point on this, we put in a resolution asking for clarity on federal reimbursement for dredging of the harbor, and there was no testimony submitted by your department. And, as the Lahaina person, What's been the follow-up with them? And what's the status you can give us on so far as being able to get federal monies to do the necessary dredging?
The status on federal support or federal reimbursement for the dredge, as far as I know, was that the initial response back from the federal government was that it was not reimbursable. However, we were appealing that motion because of
They said that was categorically not accurate, which was in the resolution, which had somebody from the department been there for the hearing would have heard the discussion. And that they were open for this, to be
Yes.
for them.
Yes.
So, but it's just concerning. This is where money leaves the table. This is where the community gets left in the dark. And you're the Lahaina point person. So, I mean, you need to be dogmatic about this and other things. And the knowledge has to be granular at this point, right? So I'm going to switch over to the fact that I've discussed it with the director before about the dredging of the Mala ramp and also Lahaina potentially. Hopefully, with your guys' concerted effort, we can get aligned with the feds on that. But Mala is still an area and it's the only commercial harbor. And dredging statewide has been an issue. I know what kind of plans do you see? What can you do there insofar as getting the money that was allocated in the project done to speed it up? And what can you do to help facilitate the strategic plan statewide? Because until a bifurcation of the system happens, it's in New York, Juliana, so.
outside of bird dogging.
Yeah. You're being honest, I like that. I mean, candor's appreciated.
I mean, that's one of the main goals, right, is to bird dog and, for the lack of a better word, pester the divisions on prioritizing.
So, I mean, are you gonna be able, comes to you.
Yeah.
So are you gonna be able to tell us and Mala, okay, when's the project gonna happen? What are the roadblocks? Because the community, I need this information, community needs this information to know that, because right now the community sees it's not getting addressed and the situation's really perilous.
I believe that we're already prioritizing the Mala situation, and we've been in active conversations with our attorneys general on how best to approach it without being mired in litigation, particularly from commercial users.
So we can expect a response on that from you guys to
Yes.
facilitate that?
Yes.
Because that's what, I'm driving at, is your predecessor was extremely communicative, both with ourselves and the area representatives and senators, as is the community. Now, I'm not trying to judge by any previous standards of anybody else, but deputy coming into the community, there are big shoes that we're creating, right? And so this is why these answers and specificity and follow-up are important to me, and we got to know that this is going to happen and the community is engaged in the process the entire way. Speaking of which, what are the thoughts of trying to address the situations with the community conflicts over at Mala Ramp right now? I mean, there were some ideas floated around, but has there been any furtherance of those ideas insofar as trying to manage the commercial traffic situation in the area, the revenue parking?
I believe that we are actively, well, I can't give you details because I have been pulled into this issue just recently. But I know that we've been working with DOVAR as well as DOCARE and our attorneys general, because there is an issue of rules and how the scope of which we can meet out and regulate commercial activity in that area.
Well, right now you regulate it by prohibiting on weekends, but it's more of a management plan for the areas when I was kind of driving at.
So I'm not aware of the management plan yet.
And then maybe you can move up with the director
Yes.
and Dover on that. Because these are all intricate things and they tie into recovery, rebuilding, as well as potentiality of pulling down federal money because our time is short, right? And so do you see a role also with the department being able to identify potential federal funds or opportunities for DLNR in that area? I mean, is that something that you think would be a facilitator role of the deputy director?
I believe so, yes. And in fact, I think that my role is, or my background as an attorney helps in terms of facilitating the process.
Okay, thank you. Just to follow up from Senator Chang's questions and comments, So with regards to the state lands involvement around the rail, I know that you're already deliberating, I guess, with HHFDC and other areas. So any lands on releasing lands from DLNR for such projects as housing must be connected to a state agency, right?
Housing agency.
Housing agency.
In this-
Okay,
in
so
this
you're not
context.
involved with discussions on private developers because these are pretty much lands that probably will have to be on a rental basis rather than the development being sold thereafter, what they're doing with DHHL.
The typical course of this type of situation is a conveyance to the housing agency, and then through them, they will, do a long-term lease or some kind of development agreement with the private developers.
Okay. Secondly, another issue that was raised with regards to Senator Chang's comments on light industrial, but I'd like to pinpoint the issue that's very familiar with the agency, with KIAA in my district in Hilo. The Kainoilihua industrial area has been in discussions in this legislature for many, many years. I started here in '98 and I left in '08. And the discussion started then during my term. I left, I come back, and it's still on the table. So my thinking now, my discussions and how I feel with regards to, and I think the chair understands the concern that we have. If you look at the divisions and look at the land division, should consider looking at not everything fits at the same. The shoes does not fit all. For the East Hawaii, we're different from West Hawaii. West Hawaii is actually the tax base for the county of Hawaii and its income and tax bracket because of the resort developments there. East Hawaii, with the plantations gone, had to survive on its own. And so with that said, I was on the planning commission back in the 70s, and that's when we decided we're going to move forward with many areas, the development at Waikoloa, the approval of thousands and thousands of acres that Governor had developed, the Queen Ka'ahumanu then highway back in the 50s and the 60s. And so we opened up lands so that the resorts could at least be part of the development for bringing in tourism to Big Island. However, that's not the same for East Hawaii. The KIAA, we know, was developed after the tidal wave of 1960, which I was a displacee as well. But then those businesses were moved over, which were the lands designated by DLNR then, and the governor set aside this big parcel. We still have issues because of the issues with regards to when leases expire and where we're going forward. I think the department in the past has been too cruel to our businesses. If you take a ride along KIA, which is many, many blocks, you'll see many dead buildings. Nobody's there. It's because of the kinds of arrangements and the struggles that we penalize those who want to continue businesses there, but because of our stringent regulations, and we do know that DLNR, many of the agencies you survive on we don't contribute to giving you any more budgets. I mean, we don't contribute your general funds. And so with that said, but I believe that, again, going back to what I talked about, that one size does not fit all because of the East Hawaii and the struggles to survive. And so personally, I had a client, not a client, I was a customer, all my campaign support for my campaign to develop all my campaign work was done by this bookstore. And it was a husband and wife. And because of the deliberations not coming to an agreement with DLNR and the penalties that were, given to them and the cost of just reissuing another lease was like, you can't increase leases going over and beyond 100%, 200%, and then they have to pay their own appraisal fees. I think in order for KIA and the East Hawaii, in order to survive, we need help. And so we hope that you can consider, and I'm very happy that I assisted, the chairs and the bill that would give authority to you folks so that they're subject for negotiations, because you don't have that ability, because the law doesn't allow you to negotiate like we do for BOA, Board of the Department of Ag. So having said that, we hope that we can come to some agreements, because our people they're just closing up their businesses. And it's so sad. It's so sad that, and they're local people. That's what they do. But when they have to close up their businesses because of this, and that's why a lot of them are looking forward to DHHL lands, because they're a little more reasonable with their lease arrangements. And with that said as well, now going back to the issue that Senator Elefante brought up with the small boat harbors, and Chair and I have been, we confirmed her as well, we had long deliberations, and she and I personally agreed that, I hope it hasn't changed, that the transfer to DOT should be in the best interest of DLNR. And perhaps this is the best time. One concern that bothers me as well is because of what's happening at Maui, because we're already going to start rebuilding Lahaina Harbor, the small boat harbor. So with that, all the issues that he brought up about Mala and the others as well is only the tip of the iceberg. And so I think, matter of fact, she and I have had our meetings with DOT, so let's all work together to make sure that we can come to some agreements. And because one thing that DOT right now under its sniffing, he's acceptable. I mean, he's reasonable. And going back to having federal grants, DOT has more federal grants than any other agency aside from education as well. And so they're perfect, because you folks are doing the people's work. You're managing lands. You're creating, you got 12 agencies and that's your responsibility. But putting this into your hands, which is managing, we don't need to continue to give you maritime lands. I think it's not and the chair clearly was right, giving it back, because DOT is good about managing maritime lands as well. So with that said, I'll open it up to anything more.
Just real quickly, I'm glad you recognized the wisdom in that, because I think I remember it was you and Roz who introduced the bill to put harbors over to them.
No, I wasn't here. It was before my time.
Well, Roz was.
Yeah, before
Bring
my
back some
time.
history.
Yeah, don't blame me. It was before my time.
But very indicative. I just want
Yes.
to talk about water. I mean, it's a huge thing, water issues and, seaworm and public trust doctrine. I'd hate to have this hearing go by without touching upon this, because this is a big pivotal issue. Obviously, one of the issues that came up, tried to be addressed in bills, was the independence of seaworm, as well as, deputy director acting as an ex officio or being as a chairperson sometimes on seaworm. The issues of conflict perceived between seaworm being within the department and being attached on its own. What are your views on creating this kind of autonomy for seaworm? And then what are just your general views on the public trust doctrine insofar as potential acquisition of private water resources might be, which was an issue of legislation as well?
As far as acquisition of private infrastructure, Typically, that's done at the county level because they're the, usually they're the public purveyor of water. And I would be in support of that only because it would,
Well, you would be in support of the county, but not the state.
well, the state isn't necessarily a operator of water systems. And,
But this water is not just for municipal consumption. These water systems are also stream flow, inflow systems, to which DLNR is very active right now.
So as far as the water systems go, if it depends on not necessarily DLNR, in terms of operating them. There are other agencies that are more fit to operate them, depending on the use. For example, ADC, and their use of, old or legacy, I don't want to say old, legacy irrigation systems, then that we're open to helping them acquire.
Like we're doing with Kauai.
Yes.
Well, I mean, why DLNR is on a state level would be a necessary entity is because of the fact you have DOFA, you have the watershed areas that are tied into this.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? So to say, oh, let the county be the initiator says to me that the policy is this is for municipal use. So.
No, it depends on the use, you're right. And if it's for municipal, if it's for domestic consumption, like home consumption, it's probably best in the county's, wheelhouse. But as far as irrigation for agricultural use, that type of thing, there are entities within the state, and DLNR does work with them, like Kauai. It's a lot of times these assets come over, and it's more than just the water system itself, right? It's the surrounding area. And so in that situation, when it's time to convey, you got to split up responsibilities on who's better at doing what. And so we're better at conserving, like you said, the watershed area. But as far as the operation and maintenance of the asset that is being used for the agricultural purpose, for example, that should go to someone else.
And then just on seaworm, you support the
authority.
Is it an authority, independent authority?
So I think, we've submitted our testimonies. There's a lot in the bill that we support. As far as, for example, I guess it's the water deputy being an executive director. Like personally, I support that. They should be, elevated to that level. And as far as operationally, I can't see, and maybe I have to sit down and kind of think about this going forward, but if there would be any operational issues that the administrative attachment versus the inclusion within DLNR would change anything operationally.
The bill does that, it
Yeah.
changes.
So I'm not sure what that will do in terms of resource sharing within the department now, whether it'll put seaworm at a disadvantage. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I can't.
Yeah.
I can't.
It would be a separate funding method, no different than what you see with the Mauna Kea Authority. They were giving $4 million, $2 million, and $4 million later to start off, but it would be just an attached, no different than what you do with Kirk.
But the fact of the matter is, they're gonna still have it's the work between seaworm and DLNR is gonna have to continue. I mean, you can't do holistic resource management without both.
Any further questions, members?
No.
That's it? Okay,
Okay.
are we ready for the vote?
Yep.
Okay. You got your vote sheet?
Yep.
Okay, all right. The Committee on Water and Land is going into decision-making on GM 594. It's a hearing notice on Friday, April 5th, and this is submitting for consideration and confirmation as the Deputy Director, Department of Land and Natural Resources, gubernatorial nominee Ryan Kanakaole for a term to expire December 31st, 2026. The chair's recommendation is to advise and consent. Any discussion? Okay, Senator Chang.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As I stated earlier during the questioning of the nominee, it's very difficult for me to support leadership in this department that believes that light industrial usage such as warehouses are a more important use of the scarce state-owned lands in the TOD zones around the Honolulu rail stations. I sincerely hope that the department will alter its course, but until then, I'm going to have to vote against this recommendation.
Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Thank you. Any, yes, Senator Elafante.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. In support of the recommendation to advise and consent, first of all, I want to thank Mr. Kanakaole for stepping up and really jumping in and, taking the hard questions from us and being able to give us, really sincere and thoughtful answers. I do appreciate, your thoughts, especially as it has to do with some of the military leases coming up. And I feel confident that although we might be several years away, I think that is one important aspect. And even to his line of questioning and answers as it has to do with small boat harbors, as that is a near and dear issue to all of us and the future of small boat harbors. I think he'll make a great addition to DLNR. I think he's very fair, pragmatic, and it's a tough department. It's a tough department to lead. So really appreciate him for stepping up and in support of the recommendation.
Thank you.
Okay, Madam Chair?
Yes.
if I may. No, I would, first of all.
Senator McKelvey.
Yeah, first of all, thank you for, stepping up and serving, and our meeting was great, and I'm looking forward to working with you. However, I do have to say that, the standard I've had to set for this community in Lahaina, if you're the point person for DLNR, then that standard just got a whole lot higher. So, I mean, this has been good and engaging, but there's a lot lacking. And I need to see more, and I've got colleagues from Maui and elsewhere who have questions still remaining. So, but you're a good man, and, I think that you've shown me already that the kind of temperament and also strength to your values that's needed, but there's still a lot of exacting questions for me that have to be answered in standard. So as such, I will be going with reservations on the nomination. But as your chair can tell you, it's not a fatal blow.
All right. Okay, thank you. So chair's recommendation is to pass GM 594, advice and consent. Okay, vice chair for the vote. Chair goes aye.
Okay, Chair's recommendations to advise and consent on GM 594. Chair votes aye, Vice Chair votes aye. Senator Chang?
No.
Senator McKelvey?
No reservations.
Senator Favela is excused. Madam Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Okay, thank you. Congratulations. This concludes the Committee on Water and Land.